lounging, son.
Welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan, and I got Dr. Ben Anthony with me, and we are
What's up,
both
guys?
going to be chatting with the great Brandon Graham. Super stoked to have you on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, so Ben's got this comic book that he just decided to throw up, and I have no idea what it is. So let's talk about that real quick.
I'm not gonna say she's like the first like big adult comic, obviously, because this is like she's from like 89 and 80s, but this is sort of like the initial like furry fandom. You know, she's Omaha the cat dancer. I mean, like adults don't like it.
Right.
It pretty much like says everything you need to know in the title. It follows her life, like what's going on with her when she's not dancing, when she's not doing her things. And
That comic was a big deal in the 80s. Do you guys know Ben, do you know the backstory of Omaha with the creators on it?
no, not really. I just like, you know, not really. I'm gonna go with no.
If you guys will permit me to get incredibly nerdy.
Let's
Yeah.
do it, yeah.
It's really fascinating. So Reed Waller created it, and then he started dating Kate Worley, and I think they broke up eventually, and that the book kind of suffered because of it. And if I remember right, it went on hiatus for a while. Kate Worley remarried another guy whose name I'm not remembering right now, but she, I believe, had cancer, and there was a big benefit. They kind of brought Omaha back and did a bunch of benefit Omaha books to kind of raise money for her. She unfortunately ended up passing away, and her widower and Reed Waller finished Omaha or kept continuing it, and it switched like, you know, like that's a kitchen sink one, but the last time it was kind of, I think it was through NBM, so it was kind of
That sounds right.
Publishers, and I feel like maybe Fantagraphics did it. I don't know if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, that sounds definitely like a possibility, if nothing else. I mean, that was one of the complaints I've heard from Frank Cho, was that Fantagraphics just published a lot of pornography. I have to assume he was.
My complaint is that they stopped.
Right.
And there's actually a really fascinating Robert Crumb parody of it called The Rat Dancer. And it's weird because it's kind of like you can't tell if he loves it or hates it because it's really authentic, but it talks about it being boring and confusing. And Crumb so much work into it.
I mean, honestly, like everyday life is not always you know, glitz and glitter. I mean, no, definitely.
All right, Brandon. Well, what I like to do every time I have somebody on the show is just, you know, a little backstory on like what started your love for comics, and then in turn made you want to have a career in comics.
It was a decision that I kind of came to before I had the facts, but my parents both read comics before I was born, and my older brother did as well. So like my mother had a letter published in Spider-Man when she was in college, and my dad was obsessed with like Furry Freak Brothers and Captain Piss Gums and kind of the 60s underground stuff. So it was just kind of always around when I was a kid. And my older brother would collect Japanese and European stuff, and so it was just kind of, it got in my DNA.
I was gonna say, was your first book was it from Antarctic Press, that like October Yen? That's like the only one I've never seen.
Oh yeah,
that and Perverts of the Unknown. I've never been able to track down a copy for reasonable prices, but
that one I'm that and Pillow Fight are two of the books that I'm slowly planning on reprinting. So hopefully it'll be very cheap in the next couple of years.
Excellent. Yeah, I had Pillow Fight, and then I gave it to one of my friends. Like, I'm always like, one of the things I love about comics is just, I don't want to say they're disposable, but usually they're like not prohibitive enough that giving them away is gonna, you know, like break the bank or whatever. And giving them to other people, you know, like that's just the easiest way to explain something to somebody. Like, you know, like, just read this, look at the pictures and read it, and you're gonna understand. So are you gonna do anything different with, you say you're gonna reprint Pillow Fight and Perverts of the Unknown? Are you gonna like colorize them or anything, or is it just gonna be a straight up reprint? Or
Pillow Fight already colored the whole thing, and it was difficult because that book's probably like 20 years old now, so I had to make rules for myself of how much of it I would allow myself to fix, you know, because the anatomy it's pretty rough.
I'm down. Like, definitely put me on the pre-order list when it gets there. Definitely.
Yeah, Sam, I
Um,
haven't even heard of those books. I'm definitely late to the game in terms of your work. You know, like I started working at a shop that I've been going to for like probably over 20 years. And the manager turned me on to some of your stuff, showed me Profit, showed me multiple warheads, stuff like that, and instantly became a fan. Why Profit? Like how did that project come about when I think it was like what 2012, I believe, when he
Yeah.
relaunched some of the extreme titles.
Yeah. So Eric Stevenson, the publisher of Image, just came to me and asked. I was at a convention and he asked. I think he'd asked James Stocco first, if I remember right. And they were just kind of going through all of those. And I remember initially I was just like, oh, I can't do Profit. I'm not fast enough to do a monthly. And then he was like, you could just write it. And that idea had never occurred to me before. And I remember I just walked around a convention for a while and just thought about it for a while. And I ended up talking to Eric Larson for a bit about it. And he was really intent on it being, he was like, Profit should be like Commandy. And I never read Commandy. So, you know, I just kind of pretended for a while. I was like, yeah, just like Commandy. And then I went and ran and dug up all the Kirby issues and read it and was like, I can't do Kirby. So, but it gave me some ideas on kind of what direction to go with it. It was, yeah, it was a really cool experience to work on it. And it kind of bit me with a bug of wanting to like dig into old comics all the time and try to relaunch them. A couple of years back, me and my friend Andy Bellinger actually tried to relaunch Pit, and we had a whole pitch that we sent around and tried to get going, but it unfortunately didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, that would have been dope.
I,
Really
I want to do Youngblood. I wanted to do, you know, but it's probably best that I just continue my own stuff.
you know, what I remember from when Prophet came out was that it was, you know, you and, you know, your whole team. You got Simon Roy, Giannis, Farrell Dalrymple,
Oh yeah,
and
it's Yanni is the weird way his name is pronounced.
Giannis. I think
I
I
thought
think
it was
Ryan had it
Giannis
right
too.
last
I
time
thought it
too.
was Giannis
Yeah.
too because I'm just going based off of Giannis Antetokounmpo, the basketball player. So I just assumed that that's the way
It's
to
like
the way to pronounce it.
It's like the smooth musician Yanni.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll
I can
never
get
forget
that
that
then.
now. Right.
But like everybody was all kind of this sort of outside of the mainstream approach, right? Artists and everything.
Oh
And
yeah.
there was also you know, they had the Glory relaunch where, you know, it was Sophie Campbell doing it.
Oh yeah, Joe
And
Keating.
what was the then there was they also did like a Bloodstrike relaunch.
Yeah,
And
with
I
Tim
think
Seeley.
Yeah.
they did like an Evangeline relaunch too. And like not trying to throw shade at that the like Tim Seeley or the Mark Polton, I think, and Owen Jenny were on Evangeline. Not trying to throw shade at either of them, but like there was definitely like a real distinct like difference. You know what I mean? Like there was just like Prophet and Glory just seemed like they were what you would want from like a relaunch, just something just completely different and just immediately like jumping out. You know what I mean? Like they're just immediately like you're like, wow, what the hell is this? This is Prophet. He's eating that's the other thing I wanted to get into is like all the different you have a lot of like consistent themes throughout all your books,
A lot of cannibals.
but yeah, cannibal. You know, I mean, who isn't? You know, however, was that something that was like specific? You think? I mean, obviously to a point. You know, like Sophie Campbell's art is just, you know what I mean? Like it's so distinctive and just eye catching. Like, and the same, and that's what I'm saying is like the same I felt with everybody you had working with you on Prophet was everything was just so immediately like just eye grabbing, you know. And I like the Bloodstrikes relaunch, and you know I like the Evangeline stuff too. I can't lie. I'm not. Was that something that was brought up at all, or was everyone like kind of separate? Like I'm just curious about like what that process was.
Oh,
If you had
me
any.
and Joe Keating are really close friends, and so we talked a lot. He's kind of one of the guys that brought me into Image, and I knew Sophie from way back in Oni Press days too. But so yeah, I definitely communicated more with that team. Like I liked Tim a lot, but it was just kind of like he was doing his own thing, and the Glory stuff. Like I think at one point Glory ties into Prophet at the end of it.
I'm gonna sound like I've lost nerd points, but like I only have up until like issue 42 or 43 or something. Like I didn't get the final, like, I get non non-functional sometimes,
It's funny because I get that funny level with my own stuff. I'm like, people are gonna think this about this and this, and I think of like my favorite artists, and I'm like, I don't own every Mobius book. There's things of his where I'm like, it's not for me, so I can't expect. It's funny. There's almost that level of just like I like this, so I should have all of it, and then you realize like that that's not always how our brains work. So like our favorite film director or something, there's a couple Carpenter movies I've just never seen, but like the movies of his I love, I have memorized.
Right. Ryan, were we talking about that the last time with Grant Morrison stuff? And
Yeah,
where
we were
like
well, that was after we stopped recording. I think
okay.
we started talking about that. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Are you
Morrison's fascinating because when he's good, he's like the best ever, and when he's bad, it's just like, is this the same guy?
Yeah, see what I was saying too was like there's some stuff that I read of his that like I get, right? And then some stuff I try to read and I'm like, am I an idiot? Am I not understanding what he's trying to say, or do I need to take the same hallucinogenics that he was probably taking when he wrote this, so that I can understand it?
Right. Do you mean the older stuff specifically?
Yeah, I'm talking about like Invisibles, like there's
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's certain books that like people like just always praise, and then they're before I was even born sometimes, and then I'll go back and read it and I'm like, it's not that it feels dated, it's like, but I just like, why am I not getting it? Why do I not realize what's obviously so good about this book? That's sometimes my problem, especially with Grant's. So
Yeah, I both think Invisibles is great, and I do not understand large chunks of it. I kind of have to just be like, well, I don't know what's going on in his life here, but let's just skip 20 pages.
yeah.
That was weird too, because the artists that he's working with, like, I feel like Morrison is a guy who, and I try to do this as well, where I try to write to the artist, and when he's working with Frank Quitely, it's just like as good as Quitely's art. I think it's like amazing. And then some of the other stuff, I sound really harsh about it. I think he recently came out a book that he co-wrote, and it was really confusing to me. I don't remember the name of it. But yeah,
Was it the Boom? It was the Boom book.
Yeah, that's
right. Yeah, I forgot the name of the book too, because I think I read the first issue. I'm like, this doesn't even really feel like Grant to me. So I think I just didn't finish it. I did want to ask you though, like something that I've noticed in themes throughout your books, your world building is like next level in terms of like the work that you're clearly putting into it, like everything, like, and you have no wasted line. There's like all the worlds that you have in your comics feel so lived in, if that kind of makes sense.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's actually, I wrote 2 whole pages of notes here. There was something I was really thinking that, like, I've always noticed that, like, sort of the background or the cities or the landscapes, they're each like a character themselves. I mean, like, there's so much of that. I think what like Ryan's saying, like, it's like everything looks like it's lived in. It's got that same. I immediately jumped to like Blade Runner or like Conan or something, but also listening to you discuss talk with the Living the Line guys, and you were talking about like in Scott Pilgrim, I can always just picture like him walking around. And again, nerd points. I'm gonna say it's like Ontario, but him walking around the city.
Sure.
Every part of it is like has got this just organic feel that's like even the parts like I think there's a couple where he throws in like a photo in the background. He's like, I couldn't draw this page, so I just put in a photo that for here. But and that's something that's the same thing, like all of your books, from Rain Like Hammers, from King City, from with you sent us that the peek at is it one bastard machine? Is that what it's called?
Oh no, it's just called The Bastard Machine.
Yeah. The Bastard. Why was I getting one? Maybe it was like issue 1. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think it was named the PDF weird.
Yeah. Non-functional, like I said. Like but like it all of them, it's I don't know if it's that's again with like noticing like themes, like with eating, whether it be cannibalism, right, in Prophet, or in the Bastard Machine, you know, they go to a faux shop and they're getting banh mi's, and it's like it's just I don't know. They're just the eating is constantly. Is that like a conscious thing, or is it just and the same thing in Rain Like Hammers? That was one of the parts that I loved about it was like that big ball thing that he buys to eat. That's his dinner.
I don't think I
Like how
even went
much
as
of that
elaborate with
was
that one
yeah.
as I hoped. I wanted to make it like a city, like he was basically like a city he was eating skyscrapers of. But yeah, I mean, eating's a uh, yeah. So that just the idea of anything tactile in a comic, where it's like eating or you know, touching something or like getting dressed or anything, something that can kind of remind the reader that this is like a physical world that they, you know, it's like we all know what it's like to get a soda can. So if you put that in a comic, you know, you show Batman opening a carton of milk, it feels a little bit more relatable than if it's just him, like, you know, fighting ninjas, because it's like I've never fought a ninja, but I've opened cartons of milk, you know.
I see
So
that.
what goes when you're planning like a book, when like before you go down to write the first script, right, for the first issue or something, what kind of work do you put in, like I said, with the world building, you know, like all this different stuff, laying out the world, like the facts of that world, those characters? How much work do you put into it prior to actually sitting down and doing the first script?
Usually it's that I just start it, and then once I get kind of halfway through an issue, I kind of have to backtrack and be like, okay, what are we doing here?
Okay.
And then I figure it out. Because yeah, I notice if I pre-write stuff a lot, I'll forget it by the time that I'm actually in the story. You know, I've done comics where I had a thing that was important to a scene, and I thought of it so long ago and didn't keep notes that I don't remember until the scene's done, and I'm like, oh, got to write around that now. You know.
Mhm.
Right. I could see that. I could see that. See, the other thing when I was putting together, like going over, you know, all the different comics I've got of yours, I was thinking, I wanted to almost like separate them into like comedic works and more dramatic works, where if we think of like Prophet being more dramatic, or with Brain Like Hammers, like I think you'd mentioned that before, that you'd kind of like consciously like try to not make as many jokes and you know, make it more of like I said, like a serious work. But then I realized, because I was like thinking how like King City, like initially with that, right, he's a cat master, and his cat is like his tool for everything that he does, whether he turns it into a weapon, or I think he stores things inside the cat, or uses it as like a periscope. And your initial thought is like, oh, okay, it's like a comedy. But then like the further you get into it, like the more all the different like serious aspects come out. And I guess that's my other question is like, when you're writing, are you how like what percentage of it are you trying to say, you know, I just want to tell a bunch of jokes and have a fun story, as opposed to like I'm trying to say something really, you know, more serious, like you know, the other thing with Rain Like Hammers was that, you know, you were kind of addressing a lot of you know, just depression that you had been through, and different, you know, just different life events and whatnot. So that's what I'm saying is like, how do you approach, is every work you're like, I'm gonna make a comedy, or I'm gonna make more of a drama, or is it just, I don't know, how does that is that yeah, how does that work?
I I tend to think of at least I don't know how factual this is with the actual the way the work turns out, but I think of having it as having two different writing styles, where I think of one is like my Prophet style, which is me trying to write like you know, like 70s Conan comics, and then the King City style, which is just me trying to do like just a bunch of jokes and kind of having fun with it. Um and in recent years, I think with Rain Like Hammers, I really tried to meld them. So it was like me trying to do a more serious comic, but letting myself have fun with stuff. Because I mean, the difficult thing with when you in books where I've told myself this has to be funny, um, it's just to be kind of stressful, because you're like, oh, this isn't funny, and it's like becomes like a chore to make it funny. And I realized that like if I'm not enjoying working on the book, I think it kind of translates. It's like you want to be having fun with it as much as you can. And so like Reel Like Hammers was like, I was attempted it to be like deadly serious, but I got into having fun with it. So it was kind of, yeah, unintentionally, the humor is unintentional.
Am I correct? Like you worked on Ring Like Hammers during pandemic, right?
Oh yeah. A little bit before. The stuff that feels the most pandemic-y I did pre-pandemic.
Okay. The stuff that feels more pandemic-y was pre-pandemic. Okay.
Yeah, because it has that like isolation thing where the main character Eugene is just like in this big, he's moved to a new city and he's just kind of alone there. And yeah, a lot of it was more like initially came up with that. I think I wrote a little about in the book when I was living in Canada and I just moved to a part of the city that I didn't know anyone and was kind of just like living on a beach and just kind of didn't know what to do with myself all day. So I was trying to capture that feeling in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's another thing I really want to stress, and not obviously not just your comics, because obviously you do so much online with you have a Patreon, and you used to do the what was it, a WordPress, and then your Instagrams, is how much you call them like diary comics, is this, and just how much that has always like you put like we're saying, you put so much about this was talking about you first started thinking of the story years ago when you lived a few blocks from the beach in Vancouver, trying to make sense of my life while sinking into depression. It was a year of walking through a city that felt empty, and then you'll mix in whatever TV shows you're watching, whatever movies you're watching at the time, and that's something that I just love. You know what I mean? Like there's sometimes people will give their sort of behind the scenes or process, stories or information, and it can be really, really very dry. And I've never seen that with anything you've done with this, whether it's, you said, the Patrons or your whole, what was it, the Royal Boiler album. And I think that was from something else. It was all collected, but it was all, you make stuff that seems like it would be, like I said, it can come out dry if it's not done right. Just talking about how you're making a comic, while I sat at the table and I drew, I took a sketchbook and I went out somewhere. It can get into that kind of like navel gazing territory, but
sure.
It doesn't feel that way. I feel like it's like reading your comic is a very unique experience compared to like a lot of other stuff that's like it's not like other comics that are on the stands, and I think that it's nowadays, I don't know, I read a lot of comics, but I feel like it's kind of rare to get that unique kind of like thing that like that's a Brandon Graham comic. It feels like a Brandon Graham comic. You know what I mean? Whether it is profit, where you're just writing for somebody else, or you're doing your own stuff. Like I love the new book that you're doing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to an earlier podcast you guys did, and you were talking kind of about wanting comics to be like universal and like put them in movie theaters with X-Men and things. And I'm almost of the mindset that I feel like I prefer comics the most when they're super niche and weird, because it's like you can make a Marvel movie and that is for like everyone. Probably has like, I'm sure there's people that hate them all in principle, but like they're pretty universally enjoyed by everyone. Where comics, you can make something where it doesn't have to be for everyone, and I like that a lot. You can do something that's like just so weird and niche and feels really personal.
Because I was just listening to where you were discussing Ring Like Hammers with Carson and Shawn Michael there. It cracked me because I listened to it before, and this time it really stuck out. This is like, I think this is exactly what you're saying. When there was the big controversy about Milo Manera drawing Spider-Woman crawling over the edge of the building, and you're like, I'm angry that people like are even talking about Milo. These people aren't supposed to be talking about him. Like,
I had such a high regard for Manera that I'm like, you guys are lucky he did a Spider-Woman cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the Sin City he's going.
That does look dope.
I was skimming through the Dan DiDio interview trying to get to a part where he's talking about that thing. I didn't hear if he brought it up.
Yeah, he didn't bring it up. I know he didn't want to like divulge too much stuff that hasn't come out yet. But the part that I loved that I hope they release is he said when Frank was getting the pencils back from Philip Tan for Ronin Book 2, that he almost could have just released the book with Frank Miller's art because it was that finished. You know, like that's what I want to see personally. But
yeah, I'm fascinated. That first Ronin it's out this week, isn't it?
yes, it came out this past week. That one and actually it launched with 2 books, Ronin Book 2, and then Dan DiDio wrote a book called Ancient Enemies, I think, that also dropped.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of don't know what to think about the Frank Miller Company, but I'm very hopeful.
Me either. Like I kind of like I it's a toss up for me. Like I wasn't sure that I wanted to, but it's like I almost like I can't ignore it. I have to check it out. At least check out the first couple issues. I've heard nothing but good things about Ronin Book 2 though.
Okay,
like,
yeah, because I didn't finish Ronin and was like, what happens next? But the art for the new stuff is so beautiful that I'll probably get it just on the drawings alone. And Miller is Miller, so
right.
I'm not gonna he's always interesting.
Of course. So can we talk about the new book, Bastard Machine? Like talk a little bit about the backstory in terms of like the creation of it and when we can expect it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't officially even pitched it to a publisher. I've been kind of showing it to one of the production artists at Image, but Trisha Ramos, who did the production on Rain Like Hammers as well. Mm-hmm. But essentially, it's kind of me trying to do a King City style book again. It kind of started because during the pandemic, I got really into Hergé's Tintin books again. Mm-hmm. And started like I was going through Instagram and I would count all the knockouts in Tintin and all the and all the just ridiculous stuff that happens over all the books. And I got really fascinated with how both Hergé as a person and Tintin as a book, like I forget how many, there's like, I don't know, 30, 20 Tintin books. And you learn nothing about Tintin over the course of them. Like he doesn't have a last name. You see his apartment like twice. You see him he's a journalist, but you see him writing once in the first book and never again.
Right.
And so he's this kind of mystery. And so I was reading that, and I was also thinking about Warren Ellis and Ben Temple-Smith's book Fell. Do you remember that one?
I remember that one, yeah.
It was like the slimline that they were doing. I think that, and there was there's another book, Casanova, I think, came out in the same line. They did a thing with Fell where it was like 17-page issues and these self-contained, like really cool, just short kind of episodes. And I started thinking about how that works really easily because it's like a police story. And when you watch a story about a cop, it's like everybody kind of knows the basics. It's like, there's a guy who's handed mysteries to solve every issue. So it doesn't have to be a Scooby-Doo thing where they're like showing up at a house and be like, we'll stay here for the night and then solve the mystery. It's just handed to you. So I was trying to think of what an even shorter cut to that would be. And so I came up with the idea of a guy who wears a mask and you never know he's essentially Tintin, but you don't know anything about him. And he's being blackmailed and you don't know what he's being blackmailed over. But every issue, this company hands him a job he has to finish. And it's totally nonsensical to him sometimes. Like in the first one, he has a car he has to go dig out of the desert and then drive onto just a pillar in the middle of the city. And so it's like I have that plot part that I'm just like, okay, get that out of the way, and then I can just have fun the rest of the book. And it's not even announced or planned to the publisher, but the spoiler in it is that I wanted to almost, once I have, hopefully this won't ruin it for anyone, but the reason that I'm allowing myself to do these kind of nonsensical issues is I wanted to have a thing after in the 6th issue where it becomes like a Rube Goldberg machine, where like the ball rolls down and it hits like a thing that knocks over. So all these nonsense things he's doing, I'm not quite sure how they connect, but I'm going to try to have a thing where eventually they all do one big thing.
Okay.
So it's a lot of my recent stuff like that, and the video game comic I'm doing for this company Moonray. A lot of things I'm doing, they're almost like experiments to see if it works. Like I start a comic and I'll be like, let's see if I can pull this off, and and then I'll see in 6 months or a year if I can actually do it. And even like failing at something that I'm unsure I can do is more fun than just rehashing the same stuff, hopefully.
Yeah. So do you just get like have issues in the can and then sometimes release it like later? Or do you have like other books that you've done where you have finished issues, but you maybe haven't even released it?
Yeah. No, I've got one issue of Bastard Machine done. That comic Moonray that I mentioned, I'm doing for a video game company. I'm almost on done with issue 6, and no one's seen it yet. I've got a book of diary comics. I keep showing those online, but I've got about 60 or 70 pages of that I just signed a deal with the Living the Line guys to put out.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right on.
And then I'm doing, so I have too many books I'm working on all at once. And it's a weird process because, it's like, I want to work all the time, but money always gets in the way. So you have to figure out like how to do all these weird projects I want to do and also pay rent every month.
I feel you. I mean, that's me with my channel,
Sure.
like I have a full-time job running a restaurant. So like doing that and then juggling this, which I do purely for fun and because I love comics, like I get it. It's a juggling act sometimes, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess the trick is like to find things that kind of motivate you to keep it going. So it's never a trudge.
Yeah, that's why like I started bringing in more guest hosts. Like I got Ben coming on. We talk certain comics. Like I have other people like that kind of like reignited because like I kind of started getting burnt out and like I can quickly get burnt out because I mean like restaurant work is just that's next level. So that I got super burnt out on. Like I didn't record for like 2 months and then like he'll like Ben will poke me like, hey, have you read this book before? And then like I'm like, oh, let's talk about it. And like that kind of gets me motivated. So,
do you guys share taste in comics, or do you have areas you bitterly disagree on?
So far, I don't think we've disagreed on anything. I mean, our friendship kind of started like, like during the pandemic, right? Like, because we're both a part of a Facebook group, Cartoonist Kayfabe, Ringside Seats on Facebook. So,
Kayfabe's amazing. I just picked up Jim's Hulk Grand Design.
Oh, it's so good.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that book. So yeah, like we became friends over that, and then like we talked. He does his own comics, so I had him on for an interview. We talked about that, and then so far, like like the books, like he'll recommend, like I'll read anything. Like I won't turn anything down. If it's a comic book, I'll read it. Whether or not I like it. I mean, that's a different story. But I will always give something a shot. And so far no disagreements.
I think. I really like you haven't posted we talked about the Max Immortal, right? Rick Veitch's comic, and I think that was for like our just like reviewing a comic. I think that was like the best one yet so far because
for sure
I really felt like that one. Yeah, it was like we were exactly just like on the same page with it, and it was just we both had like a similar view, but from like different angles, if that makes sense.
Did you like it?
And, oh my gosh, that's what I'm saying. Like Rick Veitch has been. I had the first issue of Rarebit Fiends when I was a kid, and I had the first issue of Max Immortal as a kid, which both of them were just like, or like, was it? They came out in like 93 or 92 or so, and so I was 14, 15 maybe, and it was just. The idea of like having dreams and meeting Steve Bissette, Neil Gaiman, and he had plenty of dreams about Dave Sim, of course, like Dave Sim just being Dave Sim,
Yeah, and it just him kind of drawing out his dreams.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I don't know how to describe it. There's a part where when he did. What was it, Techno Comics, he had like dreams about whatever he was working on in that. There's parts where he's dreaming about making comics, and like there's one where he opens up a car engine and it's like there's just stacks of like original art, and they're like, this is the problem, got to get all this out of there. And it's just weird cartoonist dreams, and it's like
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. As a kid, that just blew my mind, and
that sounds definitely like my
it's
wheelhouse. I know Paul Pope's been working on a book of dream comics that he hasn't put out yet.
Oh,
really right on.
yeah. I want to check
Drew
that out for
Hay,
sure.
I know you're a Poison Elves fan too, right,
Oh
Brandon?
yeah,
Yes. There's I'll figure out which issue it is it's in, and send you a copy of it. But Drew Hayes did a couple, I want to say maybe like 4 or 5 pages of Dream Comics in one of the issues of Rarebit Fiends as
oh,
well. And he's talking about he was like dreaming about doing covers for like Strange Attractors or some 90s indie comic. I had never even considered that he would even be. So I'm just reading through these issues of Rarebit Fiends I finally picked up. I'm like, what? Drew Hayes? What? Poison Elves? This is insane.
that's fascinating because I always feel like Hayes was really outside of comics long way.
Yeah.
He shows up in I think it's Bob Fingerman's Minimum Wage. He like is making fun of Drew Hayes. He shows up at a comic convention thing, and I remember that when it came out, and I got to track it down because even like even kind of shitting on the guy, I'm fascinated at what.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I love to see people's just their impressions and opinions. Like even like I'm the sort of person where people are like, don't read the comments, don't read the replies, and it's like that's what I want. I thrive on. Like if
Yeah.
Sure.
you know
I'm the same way, dude. I'm the same way. Like bring the love and bring the hate. I
Right, right.
exactly.
love it all, dude.
So I
Trying to be
do
much
I
less viciously bitter these days. I keep reading. I keep going through old comics journals and like having these like one-sided arguments with a thing that was printed in 1983. I'll read this and I'm like, this person's an idiot.
that could be a whole bit on its own, just to like cover an old 88 article and just be like and make your response to it like just as if it's like just happening now. That could be fun.
Yeah,
um
I read an article that actually really annoyed me that was about comic books, film adaptations of comic books, and the guy really just matter of factly in it was just like, this incredibly flawed film Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I was like, you're the only one that thinks that.
yeah, it's I've got one of the comic journals. I think it's from, is it from Empire Strikes Back? I think that's what it is. It's either Empire or the first Star Wars. It has to be the first one because it's like talking about it as being just like this new thing that's coming out, and like it's so bizarre just to see, just to have that look into the past of what the media was, what were people talking about, how were they uh reacting to the comics and movies that were out at the time. That's why I this is like a horrible segue, but I wanted to talk about your about the Moonray stuff
Sure.
because like it fascinates me. For one, I don't understand, like, are you writing it or are they giving you sort of like a rough script to work from? How closely is that related to what's going on? Everyone seems to have an opinion about the AI art, right? Everyone. Well, obviously, like Carson did the Desolation of Man or whatever, where he did just an entire comic by feeding in like algorithms
Oh yeah.
and statement. How closely do you think those two sorts of things are related? Because I mean, obviously, you're drawing the Moonray comic,
Sure.
but
Yeah, I guess I should explain what Moonray is. It's a video game company that that hired me to basically they were fans of Prophet. Um, and so they hired me and Farrell initially to do some designs for the game and kind of do the lore for the whole thing.
okay,
Um, and it's this really weird, interesting concept where uh, the characters are basically made out of it's this kind of leftover material from dead gods, like kind of post-human god things that then died long after humanity died off, and one of the later older gods is able to reform new people out of the corpses of dead gods. And so right now it's just it hasn't even come out yet, but it's basically a kind of Street Fighter 2 style arena fighting.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
you know, and you're these creatures that can kind of like form their arms into swords and things like that, and they can turn into like a swarm of little insects or something and fly really fast. Um, and so yeah, they came to me and were just like, "You want to do a story based off of this?" And so I took their initial idea, and I've just been kind of every month trying to do a monthly with it, and kind of building a narrative out of it, and like no one has a face, and it's really interesting and alien. And I've been trying to. I feel like I'm like explaining to my girlfriend the other day is like almost like I broke my back when I was a teenager, and I had to learn to walk again, and it feels like
Shit.
the comic equivalent of like I'm taking all these different narrative things, and I feel like I'm kind of learning to walk again while removing some of the things I did in other comics. But yeah, it's been interesting. But under the AI thing, I have a I don't understand people's strong feelings about AI art because I it feels like um it feels like a fine chef being worried about McDonald's. It's just not interesting to me, you know.
Right.
I don't know if that sounds too.
That is such a great analogy. I love that. That's, I mean, it makes sense. I understand how people can be offended by it, but at the same time, like, just if you're an artist, then just I mean, just ignore it. You know, like, you know where the talent is. You know that it's not this, to me. It's not that, I don't know. Maybe it's not the same as creating. Like, with, I mean, typing stuff into a computer to me is a lot different than what you do. It's not even the same thing. I don't even.
Yeah,
I
and it
mean,
goes back to the thing of kind of a personal touch, and maybe it'll create an interesting environment where somebody who's a writer who has an interesting story they want to show visually can figure out an AI way to show it to someone as like a proof of concept, and then if that sells, they can hire someone to do the art that's closer to they want.
right. What would somebody say if it was like an AI writer though? If you just typed in a bunch of different things and it gave you a story.
There are like weird like copywriter like AI like copywriters where you just give them a couple keywords and it
Sure.
literally spits out like a whole copy for your new shampoo brand or whatever.
That's
Like
it's so weird to think about.
I mean, it's cool. We're being forced to deal with these like these like Blade Runner concepts now. It's like we're suddenly in the like what is a soul? We're dipping our toes in the what is the soul area of science fiction, which I think will could happen in the next decade where we're like, is this AI thing better than the Twilight series?
that's the other part I thought is that a lot of this it reminds me immediately of like Ghost in the Shell and just the whole concept of like what is someone's identity? Is that something that can be like put into a computer, turned into an artificial intelligence, and what does that mean or whatever? And that's kind of bringing it back to Rain Like Hammers. That was kind of something you were playing with Brick Brick Block, right? The guy that like he it's in the first issue. I should have wrote down which issue everything was in.
Oh, he
But the
shows up.
guy he goes and he moves his consciousness from one body to another, and every time he moves it's like he's like reflecting on it, like what does this mean, like how does this really ultimately, what does this mean about me? That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think right now with the way the AI art is that it's on like a Ghost in the Shell level or anything, but
Sure.
within what 5 or 10 years, what is it gonna look like then? Are we gonna have chat bots that are making their own comics by using AI art? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I mean, part of me feels like comics is probably has the least to worry about from it because, video game character designers are probably much more in danger, or things where it's like these kind of high-end skill jobs that don't necessarily need a personal touch in the same way. Um, I don't know. With Rain Like Hammers, part of it that I was trying to talk about was almost about how we kind of have to contend like with different versions of ourselves when we're, at different parts of our life too. So yeah, I don't
that's
know. I did in some diary comics. I never smoked pot until I was in my 40s, and I keep having these very teenager thoughts now, where I'll suddenly be like, what is anything? Does anything matter? I'm trying to put that in the work without it being like, cliche and stupid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We all get our moments. Like I said, I'm non-functional often, so right on, right on.
So I want to get a little bit into these diary comics. So like that's one of the things I love that you're constantly, the way you use social media. I like following your Instagram is I love doing it because like whether it's in your stories where you're showcasing some comics you're digging through, like old comics. I mean, it's ended up costing me money, but I enjoy it. Like I love discovering stuff that I've never seen or heard of before, and I love that about your profile. But the diary comics are something I really enjoy, and you said you're going to be collecting with the Living the Line guys.
Yeah, it's interesting because everything I draw, I try to scan and color a lot of it. So I have this just like, I have these folders of just like hundreds of pages of just me trying to work out what was going on in my life at different points. So I'm gonna try to collect that and put it into context. But a lot of it for me is just like I kind of need that stuff to figure life out. It's like if I'm having a rough day, or if I'm just like trying to think, I kind of think things out.
Is it a mix of traditional and digital when you're drawing it, or is it mostly just like on the go sometimes when you're doing those?
It's all in my sketchbook, and then I color it in the computer. Like I never figured out how to draw on a computer really. Like everything's on paper, and then I mean I can kind of draw like these. I don't even use a Wacom anymore. I just use a mouse to color everything.
Okay.
Which maybe isn't the best, but I don't know if you guys will be able to see it much. But like this is kind of how a diary page looks. It's just kind of looks how it looks in the finished thing.
Yeah, that's something. That's another thing I have to say. Your lettering, I love hand lettering. I mean, that's really like comic nerd right there. Is the fact that I just comic hand lettering to me is the best, and I think it's the most personal touch that you can add to the art that kind of differentiates it from like your standard. I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but like your standard Marvel or DC. I don't know how else to say it.
No, I think it doesn't even need to be like an attack. I think there's ways that are done in like house styles,
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple house styles I've been trying to figure out where they come from. Like there's a thing I think of as the Image house style, and I'm not sure its origin. I think it might be a little Walking Dead, but it's something else too.
That was the other thing I was going to say with your lettering is obviously, there's so much stuff you do with word balloons. I'm not sure, is that a word balloon there that's got like it's got a people in it? Okay. But then you'll have like up here, is that the main character, Eugene? I think it's starting, and like you'll have faces and heads in comics. You'll have like there was one where it's like the bottom of the balloon was like filled up with blood or something.
Sure.
And of course then there's like the whole, the last time I did this, I used little sticky pads to like mark spots, and I did not do that this time. But there's the whole part where he's like listening to music, and it's like there's word balloons, but they're just filled up with all these little like colored like notes. I don't even know how to describe it. And it just
that I went and colored.
Yeah.
The doing the faces inside of the word balloon is actually a thing I got at from reading Adam Warren comics in the 80s or 90s. It was funny because I got to work with him. I did an Empowered one shot years ago.
Yes.
I remember doing like his character faces he was really obsessed with, like, he wants the character's face to show all the time. So if I would draw the back of someone's head and have them talking, he'd be like, I want to see their expression, which is something that never occurred to me in his work, but it's something that I learned a lot from. But so the way around it I would do it is I just have the character's face in the balloon. And I remember him being like really complimentary about it. He was like, that's a cool trick. And I was like, I got it from you.
I forgot that was actually like what turned me on to Adam Warren. Like I'd always seen Empowered books, and I was like, I don't know what's going on here. And I was like, I'd read I can't remember the name of what yours was, but I was like, this looks fun. And then went out and bought a bunch of Empowered stuff, and then of course went and bought a bunch of Dirty Pair stuff too, because I was like,
Oh yeah,
Okay, these guys.
he's one of my favorites. I don't know if you guys noticed, I made a font for some of my newer stuff, so I'm now mixing in the Moonray stuff and in Bastard Machine. I'm mixing a font with hand lettering, and hopefully you can't tell.
Right.
I couldn't tell. You know, you did a great job. Yeah, I didn't notice.
Because it's just a font made off my handwriting, but it's just the only way you could tell, I think, is if you notice the R's are all the same.
Right. Yeah.
That's funny. I do look at that sometimes to figure out if it's stuff's hand lettered. I'm like, is that A the same as that A? And if it's not, I'm like, okay, that was hand lettered for sure.
Yeah. But just because I'm obnoxious, I'll go in and hand letter some of it just to switch it up a little bit.
I like that. That's actually really good because I've seen a lot of people doing that where we use their own lettering to make a font, and then after I hear somebody say that, I'm like, I look and I'm like, oh, okay, I see it. I like that idea of throwing in just some random then just actually hand lettered stuff to. It's a good idea.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I asked Jim Mahfood when I had him on the last time. I was like, how come you don't make a font with your lettering? And I think I mean, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but I feel like he said he tried and it didn't come out exactly the way he wanted.
It's hard to make a font. And Jim's such a fascinating guy. Before I moved I live in Las Vegas now, but before then, me and Jim were in the same, we're both living in Portland, Oregon before then. And I got to watch him work for the first time in my life. And like that guy is like, I was talking about the idea of kind of having fun with your work and everything. I feel like he's mastered this just like he draws like a musician, if that doesn't sound too pretentious. Like he just really gets into it and just has so much fun with what he's doing.
Yeah.
That reminds me, my big disappointment when I met Rob Liefeld eventually was that I asked him if he makes sounds when he draws, and he looked at me like a crazy person because I just imagined him being someone who was like, he's drawing an explosion. And he's like, no, I don't do that. And I was like, you're the one guy I thought would do that.
Well, now I want to know, do you make sounds when you draw?
Oh, you have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have embarrassing specific sounds I make for specific things, and you get so used to being alone in a room working that I've had things where people are around me and they're just like, what are you doing, dude?
I don't want to put you on the spot and ask you to do a sound, but that would also be awesome if you did.
This is horrible. I'm a nightmare person, but there's a specific sound that I do when I'm drawing like a girl's butt. Sometimes I'll just be like, just be a creepy pervert in a coffee shop. Because my theory is, and take this for what it's worth, is that it kind of evokes more of a visceral thing. If you're making a sound when you're drawing an explosion, I feel like you're more, Will Eisner kind of drew like an actor in a lot of ways. Like his characters emote everything, and I imagine if you're in the studio with the guy, he probably would be making the faces that he's drawing and everything. So I think it's connected to that. It's like the cool part about being a cartoonist is you're kind of acting out every character.
Right.
And it's interesting how there's cartoonists who kind of overact sometimes, and people who underact in how they draw faces.
I could see that, definitely. There's definitely people that get where they just have the same face just over and over, or the same background character, or the same. And I think that kind of almost relates to how Ryan Flick's sort of complaining about fonts, where it's just so obvious that it's just a computerized font, where you get people that it's too easy to get into I don't want to say a rhythm, but it's too easy to get stuck sometimes of where you're just drawing the same thing. Or what I always notice is with myself, if I'm drawing something, it's whatever I've been looking at, invariably it's I'll subconsciously or whatever be trying to draw whoever. Obviously Sam Keith is my just my number one.
Oh, he's great. Yeah, I try to utilize that. Sometimes I will I'll have a stack of books and I'll be like, I'm gonna read a bunch of Manara stuff before I draw the scene and hopefully get some of that in me,
Right,
and I definitely do that with writing. One of my things in my writing process is I put a stack of novels that I like the writing on. I try to just read a couple pages before I go into a script to kind of remind myself like what good writing looks like.
The
Do you-
other thing
Oh,
I'll go ahead.
No, you first.
Okay,
Go.
I was just gonna say the other thing with your diary or like process comics that I like is just how much you're like consciously trying to push doing things different, you know, trying to find new ways. One of the things that always sticks out to me is like this multiple warheads, is it number 2, where you use like a Chinese menu from a restaurant to, I mean, you didn't use like the actual menu. I don't know. I think
It's
I
a
guess
it was a calendar, and I pulled it out of a garbage can.
but you know what I mean? Like just that's what always like just strikes me is like in the Royal Boiler art book there, right? That was what you kept like stressing is like figure out different interesting ways to do everything. And like I remember when this came out, I got this off the stand and it was just nothing else looked like this. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter if like everything else was, you know, just all Jim Lee drawings or something, you know, like when you have something that just sticks out, that it just automatically, you know, this same I was saying how with Prophet and Glory, you know, like they just immediately stick out just because they look different. You know, it's not like a judgment value or anything. It's just a matter of, you know, if everyone's eating vanilla ice cream, you got to go get Rocky Road or whatever, you know, like.
Yeah, totally. And something that I try to remind myself of a lot is the idea that like we get kind of locked into these ideas of what a comic is, but it's like anything that is the combination of words and pictures, we can you know, we can cannibalize those and make comics out of those. So I'm always really frustrated by my own limitations that like I'm like there's so much stuff that hasn't been done, and it's you know, human nature that we just kind of you know, stick to what we know. But it's I think it's important to kind of keep pushing against it all the time. Another cool thing about comics is I feel like you kind of build your own language. So you get used to someone and they'll have like techniques they use, and you almost like teach a reader like this means this.
Right.
And it's fascinating. Like, you know, you show like a manga to somebody that's only read 80 superhero comics, and they'll be like, you know, this doesn't make sense. You know, it's like a different language. I mean, sometimes it is.
No, I totally get it. I mean, I don't even think I read manga until like 3.5 years ago. Like I was never exposed. Like, not that I wasn't exposed to, like I knew of it, but like obviously I knew Akira, right? Like obviously that's like one of the big ones. But my buddy at the shop turned me on to Naoki Urasawa, like 20th Century Boy and Monster. And I'm like, dude, why the fuck have you not been showing me this shit all these years? Like, why have you been depriving me of stuff? Like, you recommended me all these other creators, all these other comics, but you didn't show me this. And like, I fell down a rabbit hole, man. It is like retraining. It was like retraining me the way to read like the book. Like I could, at first I'm like, my eyes kept going to the wrong panel. I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Like I went the wrong way and I'd have to read backwards, but.
Yeah, I would get so into manga sometimes that I would pick up American comics and start them in the wrong way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. Like Urasawa really brought me back to manga because there was a whole period where I got really disenchanted with it, and I was just like, you know, wasn't really excited by anything coming out of Japan. And then his stuff, and then the guy that did The Walking Man really kind of brought me back to like how cool modern manga can be.
Yeah, I haven't read that one. I'll have to check that out.
Oh, it's fascinating. A Walking Man, I think I talked about it in the back of Rain Like Hammers, but it's essentially a comic about nothing. It's like a guy who goes out on walks every day. And it's so good. And I'll pick it up sometimes. I don't know what my copy is, but I'll pick it up sometimes and just like go through it and be like, why is this so fun to read? You know, be like really like there's one where it's just like a rainy day and he goes and takes a bath. And that's essentially the comic. And it's really fun. And I don't know why. And it's kind of drawn in a very Otomo Akira style.
That was something that I obviously I loved Rain Like Hammers, right? It was just when I was getting back into comics myself. And I was like, oh shit, a new Brandon Graham comic. I've got to get it. And I read through it. I'm like, okay. And then I get to the end, and it really like changed my mind. Not changed my mind, but like opened my eyes or something, because you talk about Iyashiki. I'm not sure how you say that.
Yeah, healing manga.
Yes, yes, that's what I'm saying. Like that was like the idea of like manga that you just is like comfort, just something that you're not it just the same way, you have like comfort movies or comfort shows you watch, like you watch Cheers or Frasier or whatever it might be. You've seen the episode 50 times or whatever. And I was like, wow, you could have manga. It's the same way. And I don't know why that just blew my mind for some reason. And then the idea that there was a whole, is that a considered like a genre of manga, or because that's the other thing is like I'm not when I watch The Living the Line guys, those guys are fucking smart.
Oh yeah.
Every time
Yeah.
I'm like,
I mean, Carson's literally a professor. So
I know. I was listening
yeah.
to him ask you questions, and I'm like, am I a bad interviewer? Like, am I just like not asking good questions? Like, I don't know. And then I had to tell myself, I'm like, there's room for all types of interviewers. That's the only thing I could say to myself to make me feel better at the fact that the questions that he was asking you were like, I wouldn't even have thought to ask
Yes.
that or analyze it in that way.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Carson's an impressive dude.
Yeah.
Um,
Like when he was talking about the puns in your comics, the minute I heard that, and then I went and read Bastard Machine, I'm like, dude, how did it? Like I just I read the stuff, and I'm like, they are in like all the comics. Like that is stuff that he does, and I just never connected that dot for some reason. Like I was just enjoying your work,
I worry that the puns get too much sometimes. So
I don't think so. Like obviously not, because like I wasn't thinking like, man, he's always using puns. Like it just never clicked in my head. But because I heard that and then I went and read a comic of yours, I'm like, okay, I see. Yeah, it's not all the time, but like I do see that he does puns, and it's just like it went over my, like I recognized the pun, but it went over my head in terms of like that's like something that you do in your work.
sure. Trying to calm down.
What is it you want? I guess I'm not. That's the wrong way to say this. Like, I was thinking about this earlier. How like in the '80s, right? There's like The Dark Knight. There was Watchmen. There was, everyone thinks of like Crumb, or there's different comics that are just like touchstone for everyone, right? Or like whether everyone likes it or not, everyone like recognizes them as being just it. That's the book. You've either got to love it or hate it, but everyone has something to say about it.
Sure.
Is there something like that you see in comics now? You know what I mean? Is everyone have to read Saga? You know what I mean? Like I don't know what I'm just interested in like your opinion on that, just because I'd ask what you're reading, but every day you're like posting manga you picked up with your girlfriend, and
Sure.
you can see what you're reading. But I'm just interested what like you think there's something like that for whatever the current age of comics is, or is that something
I'm kind of critical of a lot of what's going on in comics right now. I think we're in a really safe era, unfortunately.
Yes.
So I think there's amazing stuff going on, but unfortunately I get kind of checked out because comics is such a history, and it's almost unfair. Like the modern era, it's like you go in and you see what came out this month on the shelf, and then you have like everything that was made in the 60s, the 80s. You can go through decades, and you don't think about slow months then.
Right.
So yeah, I mean it's and I guess something that I try to key into is that not everything is for everyone, like it's like my girlfriend is like, she enjoyed Sandman a lot and Fables and things like that, and I just like I read a little bit of Fables now, but they're just not in my wheelhouse, and every time I try to engage with them, it's almost like they don't hook me in the way that reading an old Omaha the Cat Dancer or something. To
Right, right. Yeah, no,
So-
I definitely agree with you on the where comics seem very safe, and there's just not like it's besides like Simon Hanselman, of course,
I agree with you.
like that's to me like the closest thing that I can imagine of there being like some sort of like current like touchstone, because now we're in this weird quarantine lockdown era where I mean everything is just been flipped upside down, right? And it's like, well, I mean, I know you were there because I always saw like every time I liked a new daily episode of Crisis Zone, it was like, oh shit, everyone else has already seen this too. This is awesome, and it was like, it definitely seemed like that sort of like on that sort of level, but I don't know if that went above just this group of cartoonists and Simon's like fans. You know what I mean? Like, is that
Yeah, I don't know. I do feel like Simon is the most kind of zeitgeisty cartoonist. Certainly during the pandemic, like that was amazing, and he was doing really risky stuff. And he catches a lot of heat for it too. Like I feel like if he wasn't so embedded with Fantagraphics, he would probably get in a lot more trouble.
I think it's interesting you said safe though, because like I don't think about it in that sense, but like the Comics Code Authority's gone, but yet the two biggest publishers in comics, they don't push boundaries at all. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
well,
Like,
social media has kind of taken the new form of the Comics Code in a lot of ways because like
everybody's sensitive about everything.
yeah, and it can really like affect you. Like I know of. I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn, but like there's enough kind of behind the scenes stories of people's like incomes getting really hurt, and you know like jobs being lost because somebody like said the wrong thing or drew the wrong thing.
right? Right.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
I
crazy.
can't really fault people for wanting to like get by, but it's difficult because it's also coming from a place where people want, it's kind of a mixed bag where it's like people want, like a lot of the kind of social justice movement stuff comes from a very positive place of wanting the world to be better, but it becomes this kind of idea policing where people are like trying to shut down things because they think it's um because they think that it's going after someone that like an imagined person or something, or they're you know yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I talk about in Diary Comics is how intensely bad I think a lot of social media is for people's brains.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's a lot of, I think one of the amazing things that the kayfabe guys did is they brought back comics to be about comics. Because for a long time, comics news sites were essentially like, it was like gossip around comics and what's going to be a movie and what's going to, who got in trouble this week. But the kayfabe guys actually just made it about like what's awesome in comics and what do we think is really cool. And
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I totally agree. I mean, they kind of, came at such a perfect time for me personally. Like the lockdown was here. There's no new comics. I'm bored as shit at home, and that's when I fully got into the channel. And I went back from the beginning and I watched everything. And I started like rediscovering my love for like older stuff that I wasn't getting stuff I had never read before, and loving that.
Yeah.
And I've had so many people come to me and they're like, why don't you do videos like this? And I'm like, because that's not what I want my channel to be about. I don't want it to be about speculating books and what the new hot book is of the week.
Sure.
I mean, I've gotten into arguments at the shop because I was working full time at a shop. I'm only there once a week, but I've had people come in, what's the new hot book? I'm like, what the fuck does that mean, dude? Like, are you looking for a good book? Or are you looking for a book you can try and flip and make money on? Because if that's the book you're trying to do, you think it's going to be on the shelf because it's not going to be there. Like, we're not about giving you books so that you can go make money and flip it. You know?
It is fascinating. Something that I often try to do is find out why people like books that I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
There's a friend of mine who's very kind of newer working in comics, Wyatt Kennedy, who did the book Valero with Milana, who I actually lettered that book. I don't know if I mentioned that before.
Oh no.
I created a font as I lettered this other Image book. So Wyatt's like just did his first stint as a comics writer, and so he's constantly coming to me with like new things where he's like, who reads this book? Why does this thing exist? and it's a lot of stuff that I haven't really thought of. And so I'll go to, for some reason, Vegas has got like 15 comic stores, and I'm always going to different ones here. And I'll go into different comic stores and I'll ask the guys like, why do you like this book? Who's reading this? Just to kind of, ideally it can kind of give me some insight to like what actually is exciting about something. And it's funny because some books aren't for anyone. Like some books you're like, who's this for? And I think that kind of goes back to this being kind of a safe era. Is I think I'll have to word this correctly because it can get messy, but in the past, publishers were much more interested in doing something that is artistically risky, so they could really like this isn't going to sell, but it's going to be so cool that it's worth publishing. And I feel like the modern day equivalent of that, unfortunately, is that people will be like, this isn't going to sell, but this is like socially, this makes us look like good people, so we're going to do it.
Yep. I I agree with that. I've had these conversations at the shop for sure many times.
Yeah, and it sucks because it's such an opportunity for different voices to be heard, but I think the kind of loudest people push to the front, and you get a bunch of mediocre comics by people that are saying like, I'm from this marginalized group, here's my garbage comic, and you're like, there's good people that are from that same group too, they're just not as pushy.
Yep. Do you feel like
Yeah.
any publishers are doing that? I mean, I feel like Fantagraphics is kind of a publisher where you'll get those types of books more so. I mean, I don't know. I don't really. Maybe I don't know all the publishers. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of smaller publishers out there, but I feel like Fantagraphics is my go-to in terms of books that are kind of more lean that way, like what you were.
Yeah, I mean,
describing.
I think I would say Fantagraphics does that less, and they're more. I mean, when Fantagraphics does books I don't like, it's because they're like I'm really craft obsessed, and if someone
Okay.
doesn't draw well, I can't get past that,
Yeah.
And so a lot of their stuff, I feel like it's like it gets a little snobby in areas where I don't think the art is up to par. But then they do stuff like Hanselman's book. I wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't go after Fantagraphics for that. I think there's a bunch of like I don't know, I'll get into real trouble, but like there's places like like Oni Press in the last decade has put up stuff where I'm just like, you guys aren't really like Scrooge McDucking it over there as far as making money, and these books just feel like they're not. And there's exceptions. They do some good books there too, but some of the stuff I'm just like, this isn't for anyone.
Yeah, it's definitely Oni's a lot different than like when I first just like think 02, 03, maybe. Like their stuff is nowhere near what it used to be.
Yeah, I mean that gets into a lot of stuff because I think they just got bought by Lions Forge and went through a big staff restructuring and everything.
Yeah, right.
Lions Forge had done that. They had Mahfood doing that Miami Vice there. Like that.
That was dope.
Like I know exactly what you're, because I've heard other people say the same sort of thing where it gets, some of it can get into that like just sort of cookie cutter kind of, not even necessarily, I guess sort of in that where they get a house style, right?
Yeah.
I think it's funny because you're kind of talking about like you want to figure out why someone's reading something, right? Like what is it that's speaking to you? Like that's something that I got that Anthony Bourdain, right? Anthony Bourdain, obviously.
Oh, he did comics.
Yeah. No, that's did you get your package there yet, Ryan?
I did. I got it today.
Awesome. So
yeah, thank you for that, by the way.
I gave you the good one. Like I found the used one for like $3. So I sent you the one that I had.
Yeah, it was sealed still. It was brand new. The one you sent me.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
I was like I could send him the old one and just not. No, I'm gonna be good.
I wouldn't have been offended. So
one of the things that he had said in his first Kitchen Confidential, right, is that he would see people like eating food that either he couldn't understand. He looked at it and he's like, that's looks disgusting. Like for the first time someone sees an oyster and like, I'm gonna eat it, just a raw oyster, like it's like, what are you thinking? But he would see people eating all these different foods and enjoying them so much, and he's just like, I need to understand that. I need to know why they like it. I need to figure that out. And that's why I try to do like trying to keep like an open mind, you know, because I see people that are like all into whatever the latest Marvel stuff is or the latest DC stuff is, you know, like X of Swords, like what, why are people buying this? You know, what uh I've tried to figure out like Donny Cates stuff, and I've bought a bunch of his books, and not trying to like talk shit on Donny Cates or whatever, or anything, but I you know, I see like so many people like talking about it. Like my friend Darren, you know, he is all about Donny Cates writing the Hulk, Donny Cates writing Thor, just whatever he's doing, he's on. And I'm like,
Well, see,
you know,
most of the people with Donny Cates, like, I mean, working at a shop, I hear it. You know, it's like people were buying those because they were being speculated on. That's what drove a lot of the sales. Him tweeting, "Oh, this is the first appearance of something," and I'm not trying to throw shade at him either, but
right,
that,
right,
you know, he was feeding that. He knew what he was doing. He's a salesman.
okay,
He's getting paid, right? Because his books are selling. If you don't, your books don't sell, you ain't getting the money. So, like,
right,
Yeah, I
that's
get
right.
really fascinated because for a while I was only hearing people complain about Marvel books. Like, and I started asking people, I was like, is there a Marvel book? There's gotta have some, they're gotta be doing something people like. And I think that new Miracle Man launched, and that was the thing that kind of broke that, is I heard people actually saying good things about that.
Right,
yeah, I
right.
think, like, to me, like, for the most part, the consistent book that I've always thought has been good, with the exception of a couple runs, was like Daredevil. Like, Chip Zdarsky is doing a fantastic job, I think,
Oh,
on
cool.
that book. And I mean, it's crazy. He's writing Daredevil and Batman right now, which I don't think has ever been done. I mean, obviously Frank Miller has done both, right? But like at the same time, no. So, but yeah,
It's
I
like,
mean, Donny Cates too. Like,
huh,
I'll say it. You know, like, part of my problem with him is I have read his stuff, and I just don't think he knows how to end a book. I
okay.
think, you know,
Okay.
like, and I mean, and I'll say that here. I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just that's my opinion. I think that he has like big ideas, but then he doesn't know how to like how to end it. And I just I don't see. I think he's overhyped. I think a lot of people overhyped stuff. You know, I think, to me, the books I like the most, and I do read superhero comics. I read a little bit of everything, but for me, creator owned stuff is kind of where I get the most excited, because I feel like you can make a superhero book a little personal. Obviously, you can put yourself in it, you know, and
Yeah.
your experiences, but it's stuff that, like, you're not going to put that same effort that you would into something that is fully yours, right? Like, you're not going to give it all up, you know what I mean, like you would for something that you're creating, that you put your blood, sweat, and tears into, like something that you're writing and drawing, right? Lettering, coloring, everything is coming from you. It's a lot different of an experience in terms of reading it and consuming it. And you know, I get more excited about like stuff like that, you know, like, and I like, you know, Ben and stuff, and the indie scene and the indie guys that I've become friends with. Like, I like supporting that stuff more. Time Warner and Disney are doing just fine. They can do without some of my money, you know.
Yeah, I have been enjoying kind of almost like reverse engineering 70s and 80s mainstream comics, because there's certainly like there's a level of craft there that like I just read a Conan, like a, you know, a John Buscema Conan the other day, and I was just like, I was making notes while I was reading it. I was just like, it's so engaging and so fascinating on every page that I really like wanted to figure out like how they did it, you know. And it actually
Wow.
influenced the
So,
thing that I was writing, where I was like, so I wrote down everything that happened in the Conan book, and I started writing down like what the exciting points were for me, and almost like these moments of like where things go bad for the character. And I was almost worried that my stuff was almost like too soft on the characters, like I get a little too nice, and I was like, they're really rough on Conan in this. And so I forced myself to write a little harsher scenes where it looked like the characters were going to die.
That's interesting. Do you like, because I don't make comics, so like it's interesting that you say it that way. Are you always analyzing a book when you read it, like in that way, or is it like subconsciously you're doing it?
It actually makes it a little difficult. I just started actually right here. I just started digging up a bunch of old Sable comics, because they feel like um, Miami Vice. Like if it was like not like the Jim
yeah,
Mahfood fun Miami Vice, but like the kind of boring, cool, made for everyone's dad TV show from the 80s. And I can read a Sable book and I don't analyze it because it's just like it gets really like I'm not trying to make something that feels like a Sable book. So I
Okay.
almost need books that are almost like escapist for me, like over analyzing and trying to figure out everything on every page.
Right on. So like is your reading curated in that way? Like if you're trying to like if you're looking for something that you want to pull from, you'll read like I think you said that earlier when we were in the conversation, like that you'll put certain books like kind of on your desk, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I've been trying to dig up a bunch of Western comics because I feel like that translates in really interesting ways to science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
There's a series, forgetting the guy's name, but it's the guy who created Johnny Quest. Actually, I have that here. Doug Wildley. I got all these Rio books he did,
Oh, dude.
and they're so good. And like this one has this interesting thing where the backgrounds are kind of painted and the characters are more solid lines, so it gives it this animation feel.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they're kind of self-contained, and that's something I've been really fascinated with, is the idea of someone doing a 20-page comic and having a beginning, middle, and end that feels like you like get a whole thing.
Right, right. Sable, is that, am I thinking that's one by Mike Grell?
That's
Yeah.
John.
Of Shaman Tears fame.
Yes. Like I think it's like he's got like I'm kind of getting back to that like that healing manga sort of that genre. Like he seems like if you're like a Mike Grell fan, like you're just anything you get by him, because it's all I've got a couple of Sable books, and I can't, there's another book that he did besides Shaman's Tears. I know he did a lot of Green Arrow. I know he did some Batman and stuff, but there was another book.
Is it Star Slayer?
That might be it. Yeah.
I love
Where
Micro, so
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like he's got that style where it's just sort of like
he also did Warlord. Warlord was another book of his.
Like
Like
it's like his He-Man almost.
Yeah.
it's like he's got just this comfortable style where it's like you're not going in there because you're trying to see something insane, like experimental, this or that. You're just the same reason like I love Prince Valiant, like the old, you know what I mean? Like there's just something about, I mean, I remember reading them growing up in the comic strips and everything, and I found that used to know 30 issues of the Prince Valiant collections, and I was just like, they were like 15 cents a piece because it was like fill a long box for $50. So I was like, I'm getting all of them. And it's like I'm not going to sit down and read all of them at once, but just that idea of like they're always there. I'm just like stressed out when I'm like, I need to take a break. Just go grab a Prince Valiant. And it's just that like that sort of like what you're saying with Sable, where you're just kind of not like you're turning your brain off, but you're just kind of like relaxing and like I'm not trying to like pull anything. I'm just trying to just just read and enjoy and just relax. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's comfort comics. I've had a thing the last couple of days. I had I had kind of a stressful work week, and I was trying to get a bunch of stuff done, and I was starting my days to there's an Antarctic Press series called Twilight X that I was a big fan of when I was a teenager, and I'm still a big fan of it. And there's really slow. It's this like post-apocalyptic thing where these characters are stuck in the Caribbean and they're fighting like neo-Nazis called wankers because they're like the white American nationalist clan, and it's just them in like a yacht, and they'll be like listening to Beastie Boys, and then they'll be like, oh no, Nazis are coming, and they'll fight them off, and then like they'll be like, and then they made dinner, and they're really calming and nice, and I just keep going back to those.
That's the other ones that I got is I've anytime I see like Mark Grunwald Captain America's,
oh sure,
like, and I mean I like the art in them too, because there's a lot of like Mike Zack and Ron Lim, and Ron Lim always seemed like he was just sort of on the edge of the whole like Image thing, like he was the guy they didn't bring with them for some reason, like, and it just there's something about this. I mean, I love Captain America anyways. I love the whole, he's got his girlfriend is from the Serpent Society, and he's got his this whole extended cast of characters, and it's like I'll just grab them every now and then, like, okay, I'm just gonna read the Von Strucker Gambit and see what happens. Or, like once it got to Cap Wolf, the Cap Wolf thing I like too, but it's like that's kind of where it seems like he's like breaking out of like just comforting Captain America stories where he's like, let's turn him into a werewolf. Let's try something crazy. And it's like,
Yeah, a little bit of
we,
jumping the shark.
right. We don't need crazy Captain America stuff. Like him doing drugs. That's as far as we can go. Him turning into a werewolf. That's where I draw my line. Like,
Good line, yeah.
I don't know. I liked what you were saying before about, and this I'm just stealing everything from the Live in the Line guys because
They're good guys. I wanted to mention while you have those covers up there, something that I noticed when you were bringing a lot of the covers up is how often I've been trying to do collage stuff. I don't know if it's interesting to people, but like that multiple warheads thing, it was a 1970s Playboy that I just scanned one of the, I think it was a cigarette ad, and the background there was just that.
I love
And
it.
that thing says Sunday Pages on the
The
left
stuff
side.
in the back here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was scanned from the Playboy too, and that's the thing that I do to kind of amuse myself is I'll just be like, let's just throw this in.
Right. That's what I'm saying too. I think, is it in the back of the this too? There's a part where like you'll throw in, yeah, there's like a tiny picture of I don't know if I can get on the camera or not. I got the cameras all fucked up. I can't. Okay.
Is it at the very bottom of the page?
Yeah, so like there's a picture of you walking, and like there's just a photo of your head like scanned on there.
Oh yeah,
Like like I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
seeing that, and I was just like,
I mean, you did that also in the Bastard Machine, didn't you?
Oh yeah, no, I
It's the
put my
top, the
actual
top
face.
half of your head. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Bastard Machine, since someone's read it, the actual thing that's the Bastard Machine is just like a poster with my face on it,
yes,
a photo of my
this-
head. The spine of King City actually has I made the image logo out of a doorknob that was from a 1990s interview with the Wachowskis. I think it's on the very bottom of the
oh,
spine.
right on. Yeah, yeah. It's in the
Okay.
yeah, so right there.
Oh, dope. I like that.
Yeah, I was amazed they let me get away with that.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's just like that's what has just drawn me, like where I keep coming back to your comics and what you're doing, because it's like like I said, you're always like trying to push, like find something extra, find something that if it has been done before, it hasn't been enough, hasn't been done enough. It's just, there's just always something. And plus, like I do love comedy. I love puns and like jokes. So
Yeah.
like
I do it all
and-
day. I do it all day
Yeah.
at work, at the kitchen. I'm constantly doing shit like that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm a fan of that as well.
I forgot to ask what kind of restaurant you run.
It's like a breakfast and lunch restaurant. We do organic food, all locally sourced, and
Nice.
and then there's a sister restaurant that it was a Mexican restaurant, but now it wasn't. I mean, there's so many Mexican restaurants in LA, so like I kept telling him like, dude, do something different. So now he is doing a little bit different of a menu, doing breakfast and lunch, and then Fridays he'll do dinner. So sometimes I'm helping do that, but yeah, and then the weekend the menu changes.
Okay,
Like
you
I
guys
come
both
up
have
with
LA?
no, I only me.
Oh, okay.
What's that?
He asked if we both lived
Yeah,
in
up there
LA.
in the next couple months. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, I'm in Ohio, out in the
Ohio?
sticks. So, yeah,
Nice.
yes.
Yeah. Well, if you're in the San Fernando Valley, hit
Oh
me
yeah,
up.
the
Come
plan
stop
was
by.
I'm gonna go to LA and just rent a house for a couple of weeks so I can see what the city's like.
Right on, dude. Hell yeah. Well, I wanted to, before we get out of here, I just wanted to say thank you again, dude, for taking time to chat with not just me, but with my boy, Ben and shit.
Yes.
This has been a
Yes.
blast, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
great.
obviously been a huge fan. Like I said, you've always, I always felt like you've encouraged me because like you liked a picture I drew or something. So I was always
Oh
like,
yeah, you did that great
gosh,
elephant
this dude.
with my
Yes,
with my face on it.
yes, of course. Which that was like an actual. Well, that the elephant in the actual dream didn't have your face, but it was like I had to put it on there because it was just I had to. And if I can ask one thing, it would be, could you and your girlfriend keep making more videos where you go over comics? Like you
Oh yeah,
guys
we've been
talked,
talking about that.
you, you all
We're
talked
doing
about
this really elaborate one that took like months to research, where we're basically trying to figure out what makes a good comic store, and went to every comic store in Vegas, and where we built categories for what types of comic store there are.
awesome. Yeah, because I can't find it for some reason, but you all did that like Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom like graphic novel where Doctor Doom like was somehow like the leader of the world, like he took over.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it was just you're like perfect together, like you like bounce off of each other, and it was just I had never gotten to read the comic myself, and I felt like I was just like, I need to find this, I need to go look it up
Totally here.
because they're doing it. But yeah, I every time you guys have done comic reviews and just talked about comics, like you've done a bunch where you talk about whichever comics, it might be part of what you're working on, but you'll go over what she's reading, what you're reading, and I'm like, I dig it. Okay, this is, like I said, I love just comic stuff anyways. Like I said, I like to try and figure out why someone's reading something. What are they getting out of this? What are they getting out of like Spawn 320? Like what is it? Like is it
I
the
just read a
art?
Spawn the other day. I was really amused by the characters all say each other's full names all the time, because it's
Dude,
like, I think it's made for people that just like are going to pick up a random issue of Spawn, and so they'll be
right.
like, "Gunslinger Spawn, get the door." And I thought it was like really funny how clear it was when you read it.
I'm gonna have to look that up because I've got a couple. Every now and then I'll pick them up just because like I love the art in Spawn. Like it's just, and Gunslinger Spawn does look. Is that hat? I mean, it just looks
Yeah,
cool. I don't know what.
That's dope.
So that's what I'm saying. Like I want to figure out, is that why people are buying it just because he's got a cool hat, or is there they just like to always know who Gunslinger Spawn is, like that he's always going to be called out. Like
that's a good question. I mean, it's an interesting thing why Spawn. I mean, maybe it's for another day, but it's like
right.
why does Spawn maintain this huge audience and Savage Dragon, which is kind of continuing at the same time?
Yes. I know it doesn't make sense to me either. Because like you guys talk about like comfort, like Savage Dragons is like my comfort comic, like where I can just jump into whatever issue. And I don't need to read like the entire arc. I can just pick up a random and like it's, to me, like that's still to this day my favorite of the initial image launch. Like I read all of them, obviously. I have all of them of the initial launch, but Savage Dragon is like should be selling what I don't know what Spawn sells, but it should be selling better than it does for sure.
I wonder if it's harmed by Larson being more personal with the work.
Yeah, I don't know. I had a buddy of mine because I was doing this thing on social media, not on Instagram. I did it on Facebook and stuff. Just showing like gratitude and thanking the creators that have had an impact on me throughout my life, right? And I posted that cover of Trump chasing out the aliens.
Oh yeah,
and somebody like it's hard to even call him my friend anymore, but somebody that I was a friend with, he always like calls it, like says the dumbest shit to me. Like one time, like when Superman's son came out, is gay, he called me and he's like the first thing out of his mouth was like, dude, Superman's son's gay, what the fuck? I'm like, why do you care, and why are you calling me?
Elicited a phone call.
Yeah, I'm like, why are you calling me right now? I don't give a shit what you're saying, like
I don't think Superman could do anything to get me to pick up the phone. Superman would have to show up at my door and be like,
but anyway, so he like commented about like Trump, and he's like, oh, you're just like oh, you love Biden. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you even commenting on my page? Like, I'm talking about a creator that I like. So then, you're talking about like the good and the bad comments. Like, I'll take those bad and I'll keep clapping back at you, dude, if you're going to keep talking. So then he starts screenshotting stuff about Biden's like thing. And I'm like, dude, I got to stop, like.
Yeah, you're like, I don't work for the White House. I don't have.
Yeah, so like, I totally get it. Like, maybe that is why because he's outspoken, but I think what he has accomplished is insane, dude. You know, like his characters have aged in real time since 1992. You know,
Yeah.
and to me, that he's living his dream. Like he wanted to make comics, and that is what he has made his whole life. You know, I think it's
Yeah, and he's just, I mean, I've got a chance to hang out with him a couple times, and he's just a very sincere, cool person. I think that goes a long way.
hell yeah.
Him and Valentino have like been the two Image founders that like are really valued like getting to actually interact with like Valentino kind of coming from, you guys interviewed him, right?
Yeah, I interviewed him.
And he did, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's one I need to actually listen to because I saw it on there. But just like his stories about like he told me this crazy story once about he used to hang out, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio's father was like an
He's a
indie comics
cartoonist.
guy.
Yeah.
And he was telling me some story about hanging out with him and there being like some old cartoonist there, you know, in the 80s or whatever. And he was like, and Leonardo DiCaprio was just jumping on the bed with a lightsaber. Just these
That's
like
crazy.
bizarre.
Yeah, well, it's a crazy story. Yeah, I love Jim Valentino too. He's
Yeah.
he cracks me up, dude. I love talking to him. Yeah, I think it, and especially like I feel like the times when I'm just gonna keep rambling, but when Eric and Jim Valentino, like they were publisher at the time, like the talent that they brought in and the different types of comics, I feel like is what, in my opinion, I think, and a lot of people's opinion, is what changed Image, which is what took Image from what they started at. And then there was some dark years, you know, like where they were publishing some stuff that's questionable. Like I don't know how that got past the printer, you know, and then and then what it is now. You know, I think that they are in my opinion, are the reason that Image is still such a prominent force in the industry, because I think they.
Yeah, well, Valentino's the guy that brought in Eric Stevenson too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that
So
completely different.
Walking Dead as well.
Yeah, I mean, Kirkman lied about what it was about, but
yeah,
I love that. When he told me that story, I loved it. I was like, all where he's like, yeah, he told me it was like aliens and stuff, and then like kept waiting for the aliens to come, but by then the book was already doing well, I think, or well enough.
Yeah, I was on the weird thing when I heard that story. I was like, I wish it was aliens. I kind of want.
I kind of want to know that story too.
Yeah,
should be. Oh yeah.
Well, so just to wrap it up, I just want to, you know, once again, say thank you so much for taking time. And if anybody listening or watching has not checked out Brandon's stuff, please change that. Don't be like me and be late to the party. There's some of the best comics being put out right now. Like all the Prophet stuff, I think it's available to get still. King City, Multiple Warheads, all that stuff, dude. Rainline Hammers, and I'm sure Ben too is super stoked for Bastard Machine to come out. So hopefully that comes out soon.
Oh yeah, you know, I've got way too many comics on the way.
Awesome.
So several years there'll be too many.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there anything particular, like are you trying to plug your like the Patreon, or just your where
can we find you?
I mean, Instagram is usually the place that I kind of put the most attention into, but it's just Royal Brandon on Instagram. And I mean, the Patreon, I feel like it's like, if people really like my stuff, I post a lot of my process stuff on there, but sometimes I'll just like review beverages or whatever. So it's one of those things that I'm like, it may not be for everyone, but I have fun with it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll drop all the links down below for everybody so they can check all that out. And I know I want to do this again. So if you're up for it, I know we'd both love to have you back on for another chat. So
I can talk comics all day.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. Yeah, thank you guys.